Take each game and its merits there.
Hello, and you're very welcome to Each Game on Its Merits, our podcast where we go through every single FAI Senior Men's International ever played from 1924 onwards. My name's Aon O'Riordan.
I'm Jerry Farrell.
And we, this week, are turning our attention to a May 1935 friendly international fixture between Ireland and Switzerland. And behind us, you may notice some jerseys from my collection, in which I have actually a Swiss jersey from that 2003 qualifier where they knocked us out of the Euro 2004 competition with a 2-0 victory at home, and indeed a substitute goalkeeper's shirt from that same game. Oh, so there you go. And these are things I pick up as I.
Do you want to mention whose jersey?
Yeah, I better.
Beloved in Switzerland, not less beloved in Ireland. Alexander Fry.
Didn't somebody throw a bottle at him?
Yes.
Did Matt,
Was Matt Holland?
No, it wasn't Matt Holland.
Mark
Kinsler threw a bottle at him as he was celebrating. So anyway, apologies for all our to our Swiss listeners if they're offended by that. But anyway, this is a monumental travesty of justice. This what happens in this game. It is an absolute outrage.
Yeah, like people are getting very angry about whether Declan Rice should have got sent off.
That is nothing.
Yeah,
that's a parking ticket compared to the Birmingham 6 compared to this, right? This is unbelievable. We were done in 1-0, and should I go through the team first?
Let's go through the team.
Describe what actually happened.
And there's some interesting players in the team, and we'll set the back. Well, right. Let's set the background. So we're going on a tour. We're going on a job.
Prepare to be absolute down. It's not a qualifier. It's a friendly. It's a 2-game special, if you like, in May of 1935.
Yeah.
We're on the road. We play Germany after this,
yes,
but we're playing the Swiss
in Basel.
And their reputation for fair play, neutrality, and international goodness.
Well, the home of international football and so on
is incredibly tarnished by what happens in this game.
Yes,
it should be mortified.
The referee, who we'll mention, but
unbelievable.
Just for context, these continental tours.
An Austrian referee, as it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Bernick.
So continental tours are very common at the time. So look, clubs start doing it. Clubs start going to the continent for Britain and Ireland, especially for Britain, and the
Celtic do a lot of it.
And the English, national team, of course, do it as well. So they did these kind of summer continental tours in May, June, and they play teams from Hungary, Czechoslovakia, so on. And we kind of follow suit in 1935. And the Swiss are our kind of benefactors. So the tour itself costs about £600.
Right.
Now, in our previous episode, we've said that despite having a bumper gate for the Hungary match, we make less than 200 as a profit as the FAI. So £600 to travel to Switzerland and Germany. The Swiss FA are putting up most of the money, and there's an agreement that the Swiss will come and play in Dublin the following year. So that's it. We have a couple of games in kind of continental Europe. We're playing in Basel in Switzerland, and we're going to Dortmund to play in the Rote Erde Stadium afterwards, which is the home of Borussia Dortmund.
I would say we have not won a game since May of 1930. And now it's May of 1935, and our losing streak continues. I actually thought that our worst losing streak was actually 68 to 72. It turns out that this is actually worse. It's a disaster. We didn't play as many games. Anyway, so the team in the St. Jacobs Stadium for Ireland is Jim Foley, Glasgow Celtic, his 4th cap, Paddy Gaskins from Shamrock Rovers, his 4th cap, Leo Dunn, who features heavily in this discussion.
Yes.
Okay, Manchester City player, his 1st cap, his debut. Paddy O'Kane from Bowes, 2nd cap. Charlie Lennon from James's Gate, 2nd cap. Freddie Hutchinson from Drumcondra makes his debut. Jimmy Daly from Rovers, his 2nd cap. Now, Pleb Ellis, what a great name.
We'll talk
about him in a minute.
Who Plevna Ellis is and why he has a name.
Brilliant. Bowes' 1st cap. Alf Rigby, James's Gate, his 2nd cap. Joey Donnelly from Dundalk, we spoke about him in our last episode. 2nd cap. And Paddy Monaghan from Sligo Rovers, making also his debut.
And we'll talk about Paddy Monaghan a bit as well, because he is the only Sligo Rover player ever to be capped by the FAI while he's at the club. Yes. Obviously Seamus Coleman had played for Sligo Rovers. But not while a Sligo player.
Right. So we kind of have to just talk about the
game and the
unbelievable incident. Right. So basically, to put it, to summarise it, where we literally are down to half a team because of the nature of the game, and half the team seems to be limping around the place.
Yes.
And there's an outrageously offside goal scored, which everybody assumes to be offside. Am I right?
Well, no.
Oh, no,
Just
when I read it.
It's a hot day, it's a dry pitch.
Okay.
And you want to maybe
They were
read down
better team on the ground, went close twice in the first half, blah, 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 blah. Alright. Second half was dominated by Switzerland. But Ireland suffered a series of injury blows. Monaghan and Hutchinson were injured and the latter went off to get treatment. No subs, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. No subs. Okay, so we're down to 9. When the left half resumed, Gaskins went off with a leg injury, only to return to outside right. Daly dropping back to fullback. So it was a bit of disorganisation because we're all getting injured. Right. A breakaway by Amando resulted in a cross to Kelhotz, who looked to be well offside as he received the ball. The winger must have thought so too because he hesitated. Taking this hesitation as an offside decision by the referee, Dunn picked up the ball, and to the amazement of the players, the referee awarded the penalty.
Yeah, and I have here in front of me the Irish Press, the headline here on the Monday after this, and you want to read it out.
Free State back who picked up the ball.
And the subheader is Tragedy of Penalty Kick.
I mean, Moore absent, by the way. Paddy Moore is not here. Doesn't say why, but clearly there's an indication that the absence of Paddy Moore.
Yeah.
He's a big name player. He wasn't on the side.
And you mentioned Jimmy Daly is playing there as a right winger. Jimmy Daly is a Shamrock Rovers player. He plays mostly as a full back. Yeah. He's drafted into the team. So also say we have 14 players on the tour. So
I also wonder if the Irish Press are having a pop there because it's clearly a very Fianna Fáil paper, and they're having a Free State back. I don't know if that's kind of a bit of a dig. Anyway,
well, we were still style as the Irish Free State and stair shot and all that.
So so anyway, they scored a penalty and that's it, 1-0, and we lose the game because there was a kind of a break in play, hesitation by the player. The Swiss player was breaking forward, assumed he was offside, kind of hesitated. Dunn says, obviously the referee is giving a free kick, picks up the ball, and the ref gives a penalty.
Well, it's one of those things. Coaching kids, you always tell them play the whistle, and Leo Dunn doesn't play the whistle. We should say
that's very fair of you.
Yes, yes, I know.
Very even-handed of you, Gerald.
But he makes a reasonable assumption that look, by the newspaper accounts, the Swiss forwards are kind of just like, oh, they're stalling, they're waiting for the whistle because they know they're offside, and then Dunn just goes, oh yeah, well this is.
He shouldn't have clearly he shouldn't have picked it up.
Yeah.
All right. He probably should have. If he always a free kick, should have. Kicked the ball or dribbled the ball to his. So anyway, tell us more about this character who cost us this game.
Well, so Leo Dunn, he isn't a kid at this stage. So he's born in
international. Seasoned player.
It's his first cap, but he's a seasoned player. He's born in 1908, so he's 27, give or take. Well, he's just nearly 27. When he is playing this game, he's months shy of his 27th birthday. He's played mostly for Drumcondra and a bit for Shelburne, sometimes known as Ducky Dunn. He's been quite successful with drums. He gets signed by Man City, but Man City have a player in the left full position where he plays his left full called Bill.
Are they a top flight team?
Yeah. So their star players are called Bill Dale, who is actually ex-Man United. He moves across to join City in the 30s, and it's kind of like they're starting left back for about 8 or 9 years. Dunn is rated very highly. He's called a top class fullback, but he can't get in the team. He makes only I think 3 appearances for Man City while he's there, and we've talked about in the previous episode English clubs not releasing their players, so he's kind of stands out in this team because he's released, mainly because he's on the transfer list.
Is the season over? Is the season over
yes,
now?
So
the season's over.
Okay. Season's over. He's on the transfer list. Shortly after this, he's going to join Hull City.
Okay. So if he gets injured, it doesn't really bother him. He
joins Hull. He has a season with Hull in 35-36. He only plays 8 times, and he gets a bit homesick, and he comes back and joins Shells, and then later rejoins Drumcondra as well.
Okay.
So he has a good productive League of Ireland career into his 30s.
Yeah.
But the game here against Switzerland and the game against Germany are his only 2 international caps.
Does it damage his reputation, this high-profile mistake?
Well, when you read the kind of press reports,
that's the kind of damning headline.
Yeah, and we got to remember, most newspapers aren't sending foreign correspondents here. There may be someone from the FAI is sending a telegram back to give a match report, and they'll come on to the next game. So there's confusion around goal scorers and that. And most of the newspapers only report that there's a penalty given for the an Irish defender handling the ball.
Now there are photographs of this game.
Yeah, so these are probably from Swiss media. So if they basically say an Irish defender hands the ball, most papers don't actually mention Dunn by name. Some of the press do, and some of them go into a bit more detail of the kind of very, interesting nature of that handball. A guy called Weiler, who's the centre half of Switzerland, actually takes the penalty. It can remind you a bit of Ronald Koeman or David Unsworth or whoever centre half taking penalties. But
Steve Bruce,
yeah.
Dennis Irwin.
So
well, he wasn't the centre half, but anyway.
But he's the guy who scores the penalty. They win 1-0. But most of the actual newspaper headlines after this tour are kind of saying, good show by the Irish. The Swiss are probably better technical on the ground footballers, but we're up and at them. We're playing aerial football. We're better in the air, and we're really putting it on them.
They had got to the quarter final of the 1934 World Cup. They lost 3-2 to the Netherlands, who are
they beat
they beat the Netherlands 3-2,
Netherlands.
and they lost to Czechoslovakia 3-2. Sorry, and Czechoslovakia then went on to the final. So
yeah, they get knocked out by the finalists. They beat Holland, who we've been knocked out of in qualifying.
Right.
So we know we're a decent side. So they're no
and they're bang home.
Yeah, they're no pushovers, but
in a hot, as you say, a hot day in their own backyard. Okay.
And of course, we should mention Paddy Moore, who we've said before. Again, one of the only players who's released. Paddy Moore is again out of favour with Aberdeen. His lifestyle, his dependence on alcohol has caught up with him, and apparently on the crossing, because obviously the players aren't flying, they're getting boats and trains. So on his way from London to the docks to get the ship across the channel to head across Europe, he drinks a bit too much. And
it appears at this stage his life begins to he's taken over.
And when you read the match report, so he still has a few kind of Indian summer moments later in his career, which is mad to say for a player who's only 27, or I think maybe 26 at this stage. His pace is gone. His technical ability is still there, but these blinding 10-yard pace that surges past defender is gone.
Okay. Right. So. Okay. So this we're having a run of pretty poor results, as I say. I mean, if you're trying to create a dynamic of this team being successful, your average Irish fan will probably come to the conclusion that this Irish team, this FAI Irish team, they don't win a whole lot.
Yeah, and well, one thing we should say again, you've mentioned there are a couple of players pick up knocks in this game, and as I say, you have a squad of 14. Paddy Moore's unavailable through kind of self-inflicted reasons. Freddie Hutchinson gets a knock. Paddy Gaskins, who's a very tough all-action player, gets a knock. So really, Ireland are playing with 11 men but 2 passengers really of players who are fit. We're constantly having to reshuffle. So you have a fullback playing at right wing who has to change position halfway through the match to cover for a player who's injured. So we're really making it hard for ourselves.
Yeah. Now we do play them again in 2 years' time, and we sort of get our revenge. We beat them 1-0, but we'll talk about that in a few weeks' time.
And this is the reciprocal nature of these tours, that
you
go over to their place and they're going to come back.
So would that have been the deal the FAI wanted?
Yes, and look, we'll come on to it in our next episode, but the tour, we lose 2 games, we lose some money, but you could also argue that it's a success, that we've developed relationships with FAs on the continent. We haven't embarrassed ourselves. We put up a good fight in these games, and these are all good sides who've been to the World Cup, who are on good runs. But pretty much a few days later, we're off to Dortmund.
Well, I sometimes wonder, as a sporting spectacle, so as a GEA sporting spectacle, big events happening in Dublin, huge crowds, massive success story, and the grounds around the country are always being upgraded, right? And it's officially sanctioned by the state as being the go-to game. Rugby, regular internationals against England, Scotland and Wales, and I suppose the level of success there, I can't actually speak with any authority as to how much we won in that period of time, but they might...
Well, rugby, I think the 40s is more the heyday when you were in Grand Slams under Jack Kyle and Carl Mullen.
Okay, but still, but I don't know, maybe I'm completely misreading this, but I get the sense that it's embedding itself slightly now. That this team isn't up to much, or that continental football is just better and streets ahead.
Well, we were talking about Hungary the last game, so there's a lot of footballing pioneers who are going out from England and from Ireland. So you have guys like Jim Donnelly, who is a man from County Mayo, who's played in England, is going out to Hungary to Belgrade, going to Istanbul, coaching teams.
Patrick O'Connell
is
he's now manager of Barcelona in 2035.
Yeah, well, 35, he's winning the league with Betis, he's going to
Yeah.
Barcelona
Yeah.
shortly after that.
Yeah.
You have Jimmy Hogan, who is born in Lancashire to Irish parents, who decides to pursue football rather than a career in the priesthood, who always styles himself as Seamus Hogan, actually. Again, Mayo background. But he's the guy who, the Hungarians credit of kind of revolutionising their game. He's very influential
Really?
in their development, their coaching.
Oh.
And the FA are in regular touch with Hogan. So he's very influential in the development of football in Central Europe, in Czechoslovakia, in Hungary, and Austria. So the Central Europe is really developing what sometimes gets called the Danubian school of football, between kind of the likes of Prague and Budapest and so on, is really kind of taken over. And the Wunder team, the Hungarians, the Czechs getting to the final of the World Cup, the Italians obviously are advancing. So things are tough for us, but I think we're holding our own. I think what's worth saying as well, Leon, if you look at what's happened in, say, the previous 5 or 10 years in Irish football, and we've covered a lot of it, but 1930 owes kind of complete the new stand at Dalymount, an Archibald Leach stand. They keep putting money into Dalymount to improve it and make it,
It was one of the best in these islands at that point, yeah.
You've got Shamrock Rovers have moved to Milltown in 1926 and they're putting money into that and developing that. Dolphin, who are one of the strongest sides in 35, who are, I think, league champions that year, they have a credit 20,000 in Dolphin's Barn, kind of Crumlin area. I think where Dolphin House social housing complex is now was the side of their stadium, there near the canal. They got 20,000 out of the game there against Shamrock Rovers around this time. So there's huge interest in the domestic game, and
but that's the kind of point I'm trying to make. Is that maybe it just doesn't transfer to this Irish thing, this national side. The club game probably is it. You know what I mean? And the more so than the GA, where the club game is really fundamental to the identity of a lot of GA people, and the county thing is secondary. Then maybe it's similar here.
And the League of Ireland representative teams are big as well. You got remember a cap is still
as big a representative honour.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit before we finish up on this episode. Plev Ellis, what a great name.
Oh yes. So again, talking about Central and Eastern Europe, Plevna Turner Ellis, and you look and there aren't many Plevnas, but his uncle had fought at the Battle of Plevna, which is in modern day Bulgaria, in the British Army in the 1880s. And I'm looking into it, it's quite interesting. The Ellis family had...
so they're Irish family?
They're Irish family, but they have some connections in Britain.
So they have some, maybe an allegiance to the British Army or whatever.
Yeah, and he's named, and there are, I think there's 11 streets in England named Plevna Road or Plevna Street after that battle.
Right.
Plevna in the late 19th and early 20th century is quite a common name for a boy.
Would it betray your political allegiances?
I don't think so, because I think it just becomes a family name, because Plev Ellis, who's playing for Ireland here, I think who wins several caps for Ireland, he names his son Plevna Ellis as well.
Okay, it's a family name.
Yeah, he later becomes head of Irish Gypsum, kind of quarrying and minerals kind of company. Becomes a very successful businessman in the 60s and 70s. But yeah, it's the Battle of Plevna in Bulgaria, and it's funny, the Shamrock Rovers play a Bulgarian team in the European Cup in the 60s, and Plev Ellis, because of his name, is invited to go along to meet the Bulgarian team and watch them train, because they're going, right, who in Irish football has a connection with Bulgaria? Oh, that guy. He's named after a battle.
That guy.
From the 1880s or whatever.
Right, okay.
Yes. I have some actually interesting clippings that I'll put up on the social media feed about Plevna Ellis and how he got that name, because I
probably scourged him for his whole life, but then he gave it to his son, so maybe he wasn't so bad.
So, well, it's like Rodney Collins joked in his book that, he's named Roderick after, his father, Roderick, and it's a family name, and he had to curse his other son, so there's Rodney Collins Jr., who's playing for Torquay now, so yeah, you don't get off lightly.
Okay, another scandalous defeat in Irish football history. 1-0 going down to the Swiss. A penalty that shouldn't have been a penalty, or maybe it should have been. But anyway, 1-0 loss. And then we move on to play the Germans in Dortmund on the 8th of May 1935. And that will be the subject of our next episode. So until then, make sure to catch us on our social media feeds, as Jerry has been saying. We'll put up all this material, the photographs, etc. Each game on its merits.
Take each game on its merits there.